Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors. Would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? In addition to the Pledge of Allegiance, we are honored tonight to have a special guest here to sing the national anthem, and that is Melina Cruz. Melina is an upcoming third-year student at New York University Tisch School of Arts studying musical theater. Melina has performed the national anthem at many pro sporting events, including Philadelphia Phillies games and Philadelphia Eagles games. Thank you, Melina, for being here.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above, from the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here, Melina. That was incredible.
Thank you.
Ms. Corporal, would you please call roll?
Mr. Kizad.
Here.
Ms. Hannah.
Here.
Ms. Kane.
Here.
Ms. Payne. She's saying here. Also in attendance is Township Manager, Ms. Teely Cools, Assistant Township Manager, Mr. Valla, Township Solicitor, Mr. Griffin, Township Engineer, Mr. Kessler, Chief of Police, Joseph Bardarelli, Police Captain, Peter Feeney, Director of Building and Zoning, Jim Ennis, Director of Parks and Rec, Paul Capera, Director of Finance, Mega Badara, Director of Public Works, Eric Gardemeyer.
Thank you, Ms. Corporal. A few upcoming events. First, the next Board of Supervisors meeting will be Monday, August 12th, 2024 at 7 p.m. here in the Public Hall. We have Movie in the Park coming up. That is going to be Thursday, August 1st. This is sponsored by the Diane Loomis team of Keller Williams. And that will begin, pre-movie activities are going to begin at 6:30. Movie starts at roughly dusk, and that's going to be at Community Park here in Middletown. So again, that's Thursday, August 1st, the Little Mermaid movie in the park. In addition, we have our annual National Night Out, and that is Tuesday, August 6th from 5:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. That's here at the Municipal Center outside in the parking lot. For those that are unfamiliar, that is our annual community building event that promotes police community partnerships and neighborhood camaraderie. There will be, among other things, police canine demonstrations, police motor unit show. There'll be food trucks and tents, vehicle tours, games, craft vendors, lots of local businesses. So please come out to National Night Out. Again, that's Tuesday, August 6th here at the Municipal Center. Additionally, we want to take this opportunity tonight to recognize one of our own residents, and that is student athlete Kennedy Dobson. So for those that don't know, Kennedy is a 17-year-old Neshaminy High School student. Kennedy, who will be a senior this year, recently competed at the U.S. Olympic swimming trials that were held a few weeks ago in Indianapolis, competing against literally the best swimmers in the entire country for a spot at the 2024 Olympics in Paris, France, including her own favorite swimmer, seven-time Olympic gold medalist Katie Ledecky. Now, although Kennedy did miss qualifying for Team USA by 0.6 of a second, which is amazing in one of her events, she did set a personal record in 3 of the 5 events she competed in, so really could not ask her to do anything more. It's absolutely incredible and an amazing accomplishment that she was even able to compete. Such a rare and unbelievable thing for somebody to be able to do that. And I just learned that you've committed to the University of Georgia. Is that correct? Congratulations. So on behalf of the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors, we just want to take this opportunity to recognize truly one of the best athletes here in Middletown Township, Kennedy Dobson. And Kennedy, we have a certificate for you, but before I do that, we have a representative from Congressman Fitzpatrick's office here. I'd like to say a few words.
Yeah, hey everyone, my name's Seth McLean. Like he said, I'm here on behalf of Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick. I'd like to thank everyone for having me today. So Kennedy, in recognition of your athletic accomplishments, the Congressman had this flag flown over the U.S. Capitol in accompaniment with this certificate.
And don't go anywhere, because we also have a representative from Representative Prokopiak's office, and we also have a certificate from Senator Frank Ferry. So they'll present their certificates, and we can take some photographs. I know we have a lot of folks that came here to recognize and honor Kennedy. I'm not going to make you stick around if you don't want to. You're certainly welcome while we conduct the rest of our business, but I'll just take a break for a couple of moments to let people clear out if they want to. Thanks.
Thank you.
Very nice. I have a couple of proclamations. The first one is a proclamation designating July as Parks and Recreation Month in Middletown Township, and it reads as follows. Whereas Parks and Recreation is an integral part of communities through this country, including Middletown Township, and whereas Parks and Recreation promotes the health and wellness, improving physical and mental health of people who live near and visit parks, and whereas Parks and Recreation encourages physical activities by providing space for popular sports, hiking trails, sports fields, and many other activities designed to promote active lifestyles. And whereas Parks and Recreation programming and education activities such as out-of-school time programming, youth sports, and environmental education are critical to childhood development. And whereas our Parks and Natural Recreation is fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community. And whereas Middletown Township recognizes the benefits derived from our Parks and Recreation resources, now therefore be it resolved by the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors that July is hereby recognized as Parks and Recreation Month in Middletown Township. Proclaim this day, the 8th day of July, 2024, by the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors. Additionally, we have a proclamation recognizing Disability Pride Month in Middletown Township, and that reads as follows. Whereas the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed on July 26, 1990, to prohibit discrimination against people with disabilities and to ensure the rights of citizens with disabilities. And whereas Disability Pride Month is celebrated nationally during the month of July to recognize the anniversary of the passage of this important legislation. And whereas the Township of Middletown recognizes that one of its greatest strengths is the diversity of its people. And whereas our disabled individuals contribute to our community's success and strength in an immeasurable number of ways. And whereas the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors created a Human Relations Commission in 2020 to express its commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion in our organization and our community, now therefore be it proclaimed that July is designated as Disability Pride Month in Middletown Township, and we, the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors, encourage all people in our community to promote the elimination of discriminatory policies and practices toward any group of people. Proclaim this 8th day of July 2024, the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors. And that brings us to public comment on non-agenda items. This is public comment on non-agenda items only. Is there any public comment? Yes, sir. Please just state your name and address at the microphone.
Lance Segers, 98 Queen Lily. Good evening. At the last meeting, you guys were approving the Orchard Square apartments. And one of the things that was brought up is the lack of your ability to not approve it due to the ordinances. My question would be is there an ability for the board to alter the ordinances to reduce dwellings like apartments, to go to more single-family homes, or if you are going to have big dwellings like that, maybe condo structures where people have a ownership stake of such buildings moving forward, so that we're seeing less and less population density in certain areas in Middletown.
So I think what you would be referring to would be changing our saldo ordinance. I don't know, Mr. Griffin, do you want to comment on the ability of a local government to amend its saldo?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the is an ordinance change. You know, that's something that the Board of Supervisors could look into. Obviously, you can't apply it retroactively, but going forward, it is something that you could look at as a part of the comprehensive plan.
Okay, so then there's your short answer, and that's certainly something that this board could look into. Because I agree with you, a lot of the frustration expressed by members of this board, not only with the recent project you're referring to, but other projects, is sort of our hands being tied in terms of what legally we are able to do. So that's certainly something we can look into.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment on non-agenda items? Okay, seeing none, I will move on to the consent agenda items, and they are as follows. Item A, consideration of authorizing payment of July 8th, 2024 bills list in the amount of $3,206,968.31. B, consideration of approving the June 11th, 2024 minutes of the public meeting of the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors. C, consideration of Department of Public Works Yard Improvements Phase 1A Change Order Number 5 for a negative $50,000 for balancing final quantities and allowances for completed project. D, consideration of Department of Public Works Yard Improvements Phase 1A Payment Certificate Number 7 Final in the amount of $64,318.68 for project completion of all contract items. E, consideration of South Flowers Mill Drainage Project Payment Certificate Number 2 in the amount of $128,745.25 for completed contract items. F, consideration of 2462 Trenton Road, McHale's Land Development S/LD Number 22-1, Financial Security Release Number 1 in the amount of $36,952 for completed items to date. And finally, G, Memorandum of Understanding between Middletown Township, African American Museum of Bucks County, and County of Bucks for the Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission Archival Grant. Is there a motion on the consent agenda items?
I make a motion to approve all consent agenda items as read.
Thank you, Ms. Corporal. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. There's been a motion and a second. Any board questions?
Yeah, can you just give just a brief overview of the memorandum for the grant that we're putting through for consent agenda?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So this is a grant opportunity from the Pennsylvania Historic Museum Commission. This grant is structured in a way that if there's multiple agencies that partner together on a single application, you can increase the potential award. The township, so this MOU essentially spells out the relationship between the three parties, the township, Bucks County, and the museum itself for this grant. In short, the MOU states that the township will be the applicant and the conduit for the funding, but the funding and any reporting related to it is going to be on the responsibility of the museum itself.
Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye, sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. Carries 5-0. Next on the agenda, consideration of lot line change, subdivision and land development plan approval at West Gillum Ave, Worthington subdivision, Langhorne, PA, TMP number 22-017-045-001, S/LD number 2401, R2 Residence Zoning District. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Vince Fioravanti here with Paul Marie Worthington and members of the Worthington and Drummond Trust are here tonight with me as well. The owners of 814 and 728 West Gillum Avenue. If the board would like, we can go through the exhibits relatively quickly, and then we would look to seek preliminary and final approval tonight, subject to any conditions the board might have.
Yeah, that's fine if you want to just run through them quickly.
Okay. Tonight, it's essentially the very simple subdivision and land development. If you look at the exhibits before you there, essentially a lot line change and a subdivision. In its existing condition, you can see the existing Lot 1, which is 814, about 36,000 square feet, goes to that heavy line there. So that's Lot 1. Lot 2 is here, about 7,000 square feet. That's existing non-conforming lot. You can see the size, the setbacks, that type of thing. Both owned by trust, and the family's with me tonight. And what we'd like to do now is subdivide the property. If we can have the next exhibit. Subdivide the property into 4 lots. All lots would now be conforming. The 36 or 37,000 square foot single lot would donate some land to Lot 4 to bring that into compliance in terms of lot area. And now we have 4 regular compliant lots in the R2 zoning district, all with over 10,000 square feet, 2 new dwellings, still a couple of nonconformities with respect to rear yard setback, but essentially taking an existing nonconforming situation and creating nice rectangular lots that are compliant with the R2 district requirements. Otherwise, everything is very simple. Water and sewer are in the street. All the utility connections are into West Gillum Avenue. Stormwater is handled by proposed stormwater management facilities to reduce post-development runoff. Street trees, everything is in compliance. All the items on the township engineer letter have been item resolved. There are 2 waivers, one for sidewalks and one for sidewalks and street lighting. So if we look at the next exhibit, it's an aerial. Yeah, that one above here. It's difficult to see here, but the justification for the waivers is that there are no sidewalks in the area. As you can see, here's the site. There are no sidewalks in the area. And also along the street frontage there are no street lights. So we think the development would better fit into the neighborhood without street lighting and without sidewalks, and that was the basis of the waiver request. Otherwise, everything will comply, and we look to answer any questions that you may have.
So I have, there was also a requested waiver for curbs.
Yes, curb and sidewalk.
Curbs and sidewalks.
Yes.
And my understanding is that the applicants agreed to contribute a sum comparable to the cost of the sidewalks and curbing in lieu of putting in the sidewalks.
Yes,
and
correct.
And no zoning variances, correct?
Correct.
And my understanding, Mr. Kessler, is that you have no objection to any of the waivers?
Correct.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions. I don't know if any of the other board members do.
Just my one question on the 2 lots that are being created. It looks like they're at the max for building coverage and impervious. Does that include just the dwelling, or is there anticipated decks and patios? Will the residents need to go to the zoning hearing board to get variances in order to put those things on?
Well, at this stage of the situation, they are up to the maximum impervious on the proposed dwellings. The actual architectural plans for the dwellings haven't been developed yet.
Okay.
So what we anticipate is as those custom home footprints are developed, they're going to have to comply, but we wanted to make the stormwater system designed for the maximum impervious. So if they wanted to come back and increase the impervious beyond that, then they would have to go to the zoning hearing board. But we have all the stormwater systems designed for the maximum, so that we anticipate that the houses will be a little bit smaller, so that everything still fits within the maximum.
Any other questions from the board? If not, I can accept a motion.
I make a motion to grant lot line change, subdivision and land development plan approval for W. Gillum Avenue, Worthington Section, subdivision SLD number 24-1 with the following conditions. 1, applicant should comply in full with all requirements of the Middletown Township subdivision and land development ordinance and the Middletown Township zoning ordinance unless relief was granted by a body having jurisdiction. 2, any remaining review comments shall be addressed in full. 3, applicant shall provide a fee in lieu of installing curbs and sidewalks along both sides of the proposed land development. The fee in lieu will be determined by the township engineer and provided as an item for the land development agreement.
Thank you, Ms. Corporal. Is there a second?
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Any board questions at this time? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next on the agenda, consideration of enacting ordinance number 24-02 to prohibit parking on Highland Park Drive near tributary to Mill Creek. Mr. Valla?
Good evening. So before you tonight is consideration of enacting ordinance 2402. This matter was raised previously and authorized for advertisement during the May meeting on May 13th. For those who may not be familiar, there is a small segment of Highland Park Drive. It's about 150 feet or so between Harvest and Hollow Road in Highland Park. There's a tributary, for those who might be familiar in that neighborhood, that runs behind a lot of homes. There's an access point off of Highland Park Drive that our Public Works Department needs to utilize in order to properly maintain that area, and it's been blocked a couple of times by parked vehicles. And so this relatively small area is being recommended for a parking restriction, and there were about 6 adjacent residents that were notified via mail.
And this was duly advertised,
Correct.
and certain residents, my understanding is, were notified by mail.
Correct.
Any board questions for Mr. Valla?
Any comments or concerns from residents?
We heard from one resident, but their concerns were not related to the parking.
Any other questions for Mr. Valla? And if not, I can accept a motion.
I move to enact ordinance 24-02, amending Chapter 470 of the Middletown Township Code of Ordinances to prohibit parking at the tributary access point on Highland Park Drive between 88 Highland Park Drive and 100 Highland Park Drive.
Thank you, Ms. Kane. Is there a second?
Second. I'll second.
Any board questions at this time? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Valla. Next on the agenda, consideration of awarding the 2024-2025 Bucks County Consortium fuel bid. Mr. Gartenmeyer.
Good evening, board members. What you have in front of you was a bid that went out by consortium for the Bucks County. The bids that you have in front of you and the recommendation are from the companies that won the bids. They are new vendors this year. Typically, the other ones usually got the bids. This year, it changed all around. So we are asking to go with these. For the petroleum, for the gas and the diesel are one vendor, and the other vendor is for home heating fuel.
And this is all allocated in the budget, yes?
Yes, that is correct.
Any questions for Mr. Gartenmeyer? I'll move to award the 2024-2025 Fuel Consortium contract to Pilot Thomas Logistics of Grapevine, Texas for unleaded gasoline with an estimated amount of $270,000. Colonial Oil Industries, Inc. of Savannah, Georgia for heating fuel with an estimated amount of $25,000 on an as-needed basis. And Pilot Thomas Logistics, LLC of Grapevine, Texas for low sulfur diesel with an estimated amount of $85,000. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I think Ms. Corporal got in first. There's been a motion and a second. Any board questions? Questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Gartmeyer.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, consideration of purchase of security system for the barn at Community Park from EAW Security. Mr. Copera.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and fellow board members. The Park and Rec Board is in front of you tonight asking for permission to purchase some security systems for the barn. This is some cameras and some locking devices for the 3 doors, similar to what we have here in the building. It's an efficiency issue because it lets us, we don't have to run over there before meetings and unlock for ballet and then go back there afterwards. The other thing that we noticed is that we were opening the doors earlier to make it good for our schedule, and that was opening the door to vandals and to some crime. We recently had one of our instructors was up on the 3rd floor and somebody came in on the 2nd floor while the door was open and robbed her of some credit cards and some cash. So we're just kind of trying to expedite this. The board had approved $125,000 for some security systems. We're expediting this a little bit, but this is $27,000 of that piece so that we can get 5 cameras and some locking card systems in there to build up and, just get our feet wet with this process and the cameras and watching everything on our phones.
So you contemplate there will be additional security features installed at some later date?
Correct.
Okay. Is still $125,000 still the budget allocation all in?
We're going to go, yes, but we're going to go a little bit softer because we understand that capital budget is tight this year. We don't, these are one of the things that we could do the critical stuff first and then, slide into what we need if the budget permits.
The board appreciates that, Mr. Copera. Any questions from the board for Mr. Copera?
It looks like we've used this firm, so we feel comfortable with how they work and how it works with our software.
Correct. So the Park and Rec Department in Warrenton uses a lot of their equipment, and I get to sit next to that Park and Rec director a lot during the meetings, and he has everything right on his phone, and he shows me the applications and how well it works. The firm EAW, we actually use their cyber locks since 2007. So we have a relationship with them dating back to 2007, and the fact that they're co-stars and they come to all the PRPS trade shows, we know them well, and they're a good vendor and they support their product.
Other questions?
Is there additional costs to this ongoing for what we're getting, or is this a one-time cost?
These 5 cameras and 3 locking systems are a one-time cost for this. So there's no ongoing because we installed Wi-Fi in the barn a couple of years ago. We have that, everything is Wi-Fi enabled now. So we have that. We haven't figured out the storage yet, whether it's 15 days and all that kind of stuff. We don't need it permanently. We just really need it more as a short-term 15-day, 30-day memory kind of thing. So we don't need a whole bunch of cloud storage.
Who's going to be monitoring the cameras?
During the next meetings, I'll be doing that in the back, yeah. So.
Other questions? If not, I can accept a motion.
I move to approve the purchase of access control and security cameras for EAW Security for the barn of Community Park for a total of $26,846.72.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Been a motion and a second. Any board questions? Questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Copera.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next, we have our Q2 financial report from Ms. Bendari.
Good evening. I hope everyone's doing well. So before I start with the presentation, I just wanted to announce that the township received the Government Finance Officer's Budget Award again for 2024. So congratulations to the whole township for all the hard work in the submission. It's always great to see, the hard work pay off. All right.
Congratulations to you and your whole department for all your hard work in achieving
Thank
that
you.
award. You deserve a lot of the credit, so thank you.
Thank you. All right, so next up is the presentation. So I'm going to be giving you a brief overview of our Q2 revenue and expenses, a brief overview of our investment fund. Unfortunately, because it's early, we weren't able to get our pension statements in yet, so I don't have those balances, but I can update you guys later if you would like. I don't think it's on. Oh, there we go. Of course, I went too far now. All right, sorry. All right, so we're currently tracking at 64% on our revenue side and 37% on the expense side. Our expenses are coming in lower, which is good to see, than our revenues overall. This is actually the opposite of what we saw in the first quarter. If you remember, in the first quarter, we didn't have a lot of our revenue in yet. So as I had mentioned last quarter, a lot of our revenue comes in quarter two. So you're actually seeing most of our real estate property tax revenue coming in the second quarter. And then, there's still going to be obviously some lagging and coming in towards the later half. We're completely on target right now. There's nothing that's lacking at this point. I do want to remind you guys, I do this every single quarter, but we do have Falls Township and Langhorne Borough who implemented their EIT tax in 2023. We didn't see as much impact in 2023. And so far, our EIT is trending pretty much on track to budget, as well as a little bit actually higher than last year. So we don't see the impact yet. But, we're going to keep on the lookout of it, and hopefully we won't see much impact. As I mentioned, expenses are coming in at target. It's inclusive of our normal year-over-year wage increases, and if not, a little bit actually better than we expected. So, specifically to speak on the general fund, which is our primary day-to-day revenue and expenditures, we're currently at 49% of our revenue and 39% of our expense budget. Again, you'll see most of our real estate taxes in here. And then, the rest of our revenue resources are actually coming in pretty strong. We have a few revenue resources that haven't come in as of yet, like per capita and mercantile. We'll see most of that come in the third quarter. So those sources are a little bit low right now. But overall, all of our revenue sources are trending to budget. And you'll see more of that when I come on the next slide, where I'm going to be comparing our quarter two general fund actuals to our quarter two budget. So as I mentioned in quarter one, we created a quarterly budget this year. Per Supervisor Kane, she had asked us to do that. In quarter two, we're actually tracking at 110% of our quarter two budget. A lot of this is because our actual real estate tax revenue came in on time overall. We used a 2-year average of trends for our budgeting for the quarters, and we're actually trending higher. Another piece that is looking good is our real estate transfer taxes. We're coming in a bit higher than expected so far from a budget standpoint. So we'll continue to watch this to see if that continues. Interest rates are also doing really well still, so that's helping our budget. We expected it to trend down, but it's actually pretty much on target, or actually doing better. On the expense side, we're coming in at 98% of what we anticipated. The 2% is usually just due to timing. We usually plan and factor in vacation sellback, overtime, double time for working holidays in our budget, but all of these assumptions may or may not happen or tie to the period. So, we always plan conservatively on the expense side, so we're actually doing quite a little bit better than planned so far. Okay, the next slide is our capital fund. Again, we utilize our capital fund for all of our capital activities and projects. There's no fixed revenue sources for this. It relies heavily on grants, fund transfers, and bonds that the township may issue. We get our grant funding usually after we complete a project, so we're actually seeing a lot of that coming in now. based on budget, but there are some, obviously, revenue sources that where we haven't started a project or we haven't completed a project, which we are anticipating and we're projecting for. We have had some better interest numbers, like I had mentioned before, so that's helping our capital budget, as well as a traffic impact fee, which I spoke about in Q1 that gave us a little bit more than budgeted. On the expense side, we're pretty much coming in as planned. Most of our expenses are the public work site improvement, which we're actually pretty much complete with. As you saw today, we did our final release of payment, so that's not in the number yet, but we're pretty much trending to what we projected overall based on the contract. And then as far as other projects, the police vehicles are completed. We received our RDA funding for that. One vehicle has been paid for on the DPW side. We're waiting for the rest to come through, and then we'll get the rest of the RDA funding for that. We started the duty pistol upgrade, so some of that that expense is in. For safety at Crossing Park, there hasn't been much change since last quarter, so you'll see that hasn't changed. We've pretty much completed our computer replacements. There might be a few more here and there, but for the most part, you're seeing that come through. The rest of the projects are either not started, we're anticipating to start later in the year, or we may not even get to them this year just based on grant funding and the timing of that. We had some prior projects that spilt through a little bit, but overall, we're trending towards what we're projecting in budget, and we should be good from a fund balance perspective. We're watching this monthly and making sure that, our balance is good and that there's nothing to deteriorate that. Okay, so last but not least is our investments overview. Like I said, we don't have our pension today, so I'm just gonna go over the investments. We're doing pretty well overall. We had some maturities come through, so you can see our current balance on our money market is higher. What they usually do is they wait to see what the market looks like and move some of our funding to our money market. So you're going to see that current balance a little bit higher than the actual account for the managed account. So it's a shift between the two. As far as our Unifast money market, we are still getting a really great rate, 5.63%. So we're keeping it in there as long as we can. Interest rates are really good right now. So we're just seeing that helping our investment account overall to trend upward. Right, that concludes the presentation unless you guys have any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Bandari. Any questions from the board?
No, thanks for all your work.
Thank you. All right,
Thank you
have a
very
good
much.
night.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, we have consideration of Stormwater Advisory Committee appointments. Now, the board had decided to create a Stormwater Advisory Committee, and we put the call out to members of the community that were interested in applying for positions on that committee. We were, I think, initially undecided about the number of people we were going to have on that committee. We were, I think, going back and forth between either 5 or 7. As it turns out, we got 7 applications. So we have 7 individuals for consideration for appointment to the Stormwater Advisory Committee. Those individuals are, Robert Feather, Joseph Fitch, Joseph Lemming, Andrew McAloon, Peter Tantala, Rachel Zobel, and I'm missing one. James Simpson. So those are the 7 individuals that have applied for positions on the Stormwater Advisory Committee. Does anyone want to make a motion to appoint?
I'd actually like to make a motion to approve all 7 of them to our Stormwater Committee.
Thank you, Ms. Kane. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Corporal. There's been a motion and a second to appoint all 7 to the Stormwater Advisory Committee. Are there any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Carries 5-0. Thank you so much to those 7 individuals for volunteering their time. We say this a lot, but we can't carry on the business of this township without individuals who are willing to step up and help their community. So thank you to those 7 individuals, and we look forward to working with you on the Stormwater Advisory Committee. And that brings us to the trash and recycling contract update. As I think pretty much everybody at this point is now aware, we did put out bids last month for a new 5-year trash and recycling contract, and we are going to have Ms. Teoli Cools just provide us with an overview and update on where we stand with things.
Thank you very much. Okay, starting with a timeline, just as a reminder to everyone, we started talking about this in March. It's a 5-year contract which expires at the end of this year. We knew that the prices had gone up in the 5 years. Basically, we saw our neighboring communities suffering 70, 80, and plus % increases. So we did start talking about it early. As a reminder for those who are out there, we have a single hauler contract system. So the municipality serves basically as a pass-through for our residents. So we bid to have the service of trash collection handled by a single hauler so that our residents can get the best price, and also it's best overall for our roads to have less wear and tear. So we started discussing that in March. We started discussing some of the options that we might incorporate into a new bid to try to save money. Again, then in April, the following month, second time it was on the agenda, the board discussed and authorized advertisement of a bid. You authorized advertisement of a bid that was going to include a number of options in hopes of getting some favorable choices from a cost standpoint. We posted the bid in May. We had the bid opening in June. We launched our public information efforts in June. We're talking about it now, and the board will be considering award next month. So talking briefly about what came in with the bids. So basically there are 3 in the green boxes, 3 main components: maintaining the existing manual 2-time-a-week service, changing to automated twice a week, and then changing to automated once a week. We've heard a lot from folks who would like to leave it as is. We're also beginning to hear from a lot of folks who don't want to, absorb this large increase that came in. So these are the waste management bids. Our residents are paying $401 annually. If we were to remain exactly as is, the number would go up to $700 a year, or a 75% increase. Going to the right, the $682 is manual as is, but it would move to monthly bulk collection. Going down to the middle category, moving to automated twice weekly, it's either $660 or $644, also with the bulk being either weekly or monthly. And then the final option on the bottom is moving to once a week automated collection. Weekly bulk waste would be a $512 annual cost. Moving to automated with bulk waste monthly would be $476. So you can basically see the top left as the highest option, bottom right as the least impactful, 19% increase. So with this, we launched public information. We started an e-newsletter called Trash Talks. We launched the first e-news on June 13th, just before the bid opening, to try to generate discussion. There had been a lot of buzz on social media sites, and so we tried to get this in the hands of as many people as possible. We were pushing it, trying to get folks to sign up for the e-news. We then followed up with a second Trash Talks e-news 2 weeks later, and we also launched a survey Our general e-news included a story about this, and we started to hit social media, cable access channel. We have had good press coverage. Levittown Now has covered it, and we also had a story on Fox 29 last week. This is the graphic that we have been pushing out. There is a QR code to try to encourage folks, any resident who wants to have their voice heard, we're encouraging them. It's a very quick 3 or 4 question survey. One of the things that has been great about this process, so we have this survey, there's one open-ended section at the bottom, so we're getting a lot of questions in. Our Public Information Officer, Liz Lawson, is tracking all of this. We have a dedicated, specific email address for questions on this. And so right now, we are getting ready to do a frequently asked questions e-news. And so we took all the questions that we've gotten in the survey, the things we've seen on our social media. We even went out to some of the other Facebook groups in the community, scoured through to get a sense of what are the questions. So I'm going to go through these top few questions, but I'm also going to encourage folks to continue to participate. Crazy, we've all been talking about it for so long, but some people are saying, hey, what's automated collection? And automated collection is trash collection that is performed by an automatic hydraulic arm that picks up and empties the cans into the truck. And it is for both trash and recycling. The next question, do we have to pay for these bins? And so the answer is no. This is a part of the bid that the hauler will provide the bins to residents. Each resident will get 2 96-gallon containers, one for trash, one for recycling. The next question, and this is, we've got folks who are saying these bins are too big, I won't be able to manage them. And then we have people saying these bins are too small, I'm going to generate too much trash. So we're basically messaging that they're 96-gallon bins, and that will hold about 7 tall kitchen trash bags worth of trash. Also, for those that are concerned about, it being too large, we have incorporated an option that after the first quarter, residents will be able to request a smaller container, and they will receive a smaller container from Waste Management. Another big question, there's a lot of confusion out there about the costs. There's a lot of misunderstanding about tax revenue versus this service. And so we're trying to, make folks understand that you are paying this trash fee as a separate fee that just comes through the township books to Waste Management. But why is it increasing so much? Well, number one, we knew we got a really good number the last time. And in those 5 years, we had COVID. We've had dramatic changes in economic factors and inflation. And again, we watched our neighboring municipalities over the last 2 years deal with these. Recycling markets have also changed dramatically. It used to be that they were valuable and that the trash and recycling companies would, be able to get money for them. Nowadays it's not the case. There's almost, for some of the recycling materials, you're actually having to pay. Another big question about Waste Management employees losing their jobs. That's really all over social media. I mean, if you're looking at some of the posts on some of the Middletown resident sites, everyone is talking about employees losing their jobs. And I'm reading, because I'm reading specifically from Waste Management, this is what they are telling us. They are saying, we will not be firing drivers if the township moves to automated collection. In fact, they are confirming they need more drivers to be trained on automated collection because the industry as a whole is moving toward automation. They also went so far as to clarify they actually still need drivers on non-automated routes as well. We have some of them in Middletown. We're still going to have non-automated for our bulk collection, for our yard waste collection, for some of our townhouse developments. So I think that's a big one. We really want to get that message out. It's going to look different. You know, you might not have the exact same person driving down your street. They're not going to be collecting trash the same way. But Waste Management has assured us that they have more positions than they can fill at this point. So next up, will yard waste and bulk waste be impacted? Some folks are worried that yard waste is going away. Yard waste is not going away. That will continue as is. Bulk may change from once a week to once a month. Another question is about townhouse developments. We have identified a number of townhome developments that are just not going to be able to accommodate automated because of the layout. And those are Tarryton, Hollybrook, Villas at Middletown, and Windy Bush. And so we have had to carve them out, and those neighborhoods will retain manual collection. We're working. Windy Bush was not one that we contemplated, and we just learned about that through resident involvement, which is great. You know, they're one-way roads. We missed that. So that is not a one-way road in a townhouse development is going to have to be carved out. And then finally, we're starting to get a little bit of buzz about the survey, and when are you going to share the results of the survey? We've gotten over 1,600 responses, but we have 12,000 impacted properties in Middletown. We really want to hear from residents. One of the requirements of the survey is that you plug your address in, so we are monitoring to make sure there are Middletown addresses that are responding, making sure that we don't have duplicates. We've got people on both sides of the issue, so we're going to make the results of the survey available when the survey is closed, and that's July 31st. The Board of Supervisors has a number of variables to take into consideration when you make this decision in August. The public feedback is one of those components. The overall impact to the community. I think one of the things I'm concerned about, and that's why we're really working hard to get this public information out there, I'm worried about the people that aren't paying attention to social media and aren't hearing about this, that are going to be hit with whatever this change is in the spring when they receive their township tax bill. And so I'd like to do everything we can to get the word out there to folks so that we don't have people coming out to these meetings in April and May, saying what's going on. So finally, just next steps, sign up for the e-news through our website, respond to the survey, provide any feedback to that trash FAQ at middletownbucks.org. And just keep providing us with your feedback. The board will be voting on this in August. I do know there was one resident who had a comment, and I'm happy to answer any questions from the board as well.
Okay, so let me just, I want to make sure board members have a chance to make comments or ask questions. A couple of things I just want to ask or maybe clarify. One is, we're obviously talking exclusively about waste management at this point. Just to be clear, we sent this out to bid. They just happen to be the lowest bidder regardless of which option we go with, correct?
Correct. There were 3 bidders, and Waste Management was the low bid.
Thank you. And it's interesting, we get a lot of trash feedback, just generally speaking, in this township, probably almost weekly. And I can say truthfully, there are days where in the same day, I'll have people come up to me or reach out to me and be concerned that they love their trash collectors and they're concerned about people losing their job. We've moved to automated. And then a minute later, I'll get an email or a phone call from somebody who their trash didn't get picked up, and all they want to do is say, Waste Management is horrible. Why are we continuing with this horrible company? They constantly miss my trash. So it's a love-hate relationship for sure, but at the end of the day, they were the clear lowest bidder, regardless of which option we go with. The other thing with the survey, because I know people have asked us, yes, we will make it available. What we don't want to do is make it available until the survey is complete, because we want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to weigh in, and we don't want to either discourage participation or skew anybody's thoughts on it. I can tell you, just sort of looking roughly at the responses so far, they're kind of all over the board. I mean, there's no really clear consensus. There are a lot of people that want to keep it the same, a lot of people that want to go to automated. Some people want 2 days, some people want 1 day. So it's been an interesting process. The whole process has been really fascinating. So we are continuing to work through it. I hope, if nothing else, people will understand that the board has tried to be extremely thoughtful and deliberate and careful about this. We know this is an important topic to a lot of people. It's not a decision we're taking lightly. It's a significant expense, no matter how you slice it. So thank you to everyone that has participated. For those of you that haven't yet, please continue to participate, because the more feedback we get from the public, it helps us in order to consider the options and ultimately make a decision. So any other board members have questions or comments? Questions or comments from any members of the public? Yes, Mr. Post. Oh, I'm sorry, this gentleman was up there first. Just state your name and address, please.
Ray Post, 5 Teal Drive, Langhorne. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Stephanie, for an excellent explanation there and for the opportunity to participate. I did fill out the survey, although late today, but I thought this was probably the most mundane topic on earth, trash collection, right? It's almost seems irrelevant, but I have lived in the same house for 30 years, and I have long thought that our trash collection services that we have are really excellent compared to that of neighboring communities, where I've observed the residents are compelled to cut up their larger trash items and boxes into little bits and stuff them into some standardized container to fit to the curb. So I strongly support the manual trash collection, and if there's, perhaps one option I'm not sure I saw there, I would support once per week manual trash collection, if that's available as an option, as a way to perhaps mitigate some of the increased costs. And further, I'd support it with the trash collection company that we currently use. I think they've really done an excellent job. At least in my view, they rarely fail to collect any reasonable amount of reasonably sized material, on their primary collection day. I think that the automated service to me is just a much lower class of service. It might be automated for the collection company, but it involves quite a bit more labor for the individual residents and more burden on the individual residents to chop everything up and fit them into the standard size container compared to hauling it to the curb. So if the once a week manual option is available, I'd love to see that. If not, I would still strongly support the twice a week manual collection over any form of the automated collection. With respect to the costs, I think we're all adults in the town, and we all realize that the costs of absolutely everything are going up, and that's particularly true when you have a favorable contract. It's a multi-year contract. That leap seems quite a bit larger. And I think with respect to the trash collection, I suspect that maybe the driver for the costs are we know that landfills are shutting down. We know that the ones that are operating are facing higher environmental costs, and so there's higher tipping fees. So I think that that's relatively explainable. I mean, maybe you could do a little better job of explaining to the community why that's true, but I think it's really very understandable that the costs of trash collection are going up. And just finally, I'd just like to thank you all for the terrific job that you do for our community every day. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Post?
Good evening. Sheldon Post, Red Rose Gate. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Statistics are an interesting commodity. We all know that people can take the same sets of numbers and interpret them different ways and come up with totally different stories. I think this might be one instance of that. We look at the increase going from 401 to 700. If you say that on December 31st, 2024, you were paying $400, and on January 1st, 2025, you're going to be paying $700, that's like a slap in the face. But if you take the fact that we've been paying 401 for 5 years, and the 700 would be for 5 years, that's really over a 10-year span. So it's not as dramatic an increase as it may sound when you look at it as just a one-shot deal like that instantaneously. It makes sense to have the as-is as the leading thing in the emails because you want to compare apples to apples right away. However, I think it would have been nice to kind of throw that in there, that we're really talking about a 10-year span of time. Boards of supervisors, school boards, county commissioners all use the same tactic when they're going to raise taxes. They all say we have to raise taxes because, but realize for the last X years we haven't had any increases, so it's really not as dramatic as it might sound. And I think this is the same kind of a situation. I mean, I think you all probably know that I favor the as-is because I've spoken before. I have a lot of the concerns that were in the frequently asked questions. I still can't buy. I understand the fact that they need to get people, hire new people and everything else. It's hard to comprehend how you can replace 3 people on a truck with 1 person and twice a week and once a week and then not involve anybody's jobs. But I do understand, the other explanation as far as that's concerned. One of my biggest concerns is the bulk issue situation, bulk pickup. Just coming over here tonight, and I've said this at another meeting as well, you can drive around the streets of Levittown, the Levittown sections. You'll see bulk items down there. There was a washer down at the end of one of our driveways, not my driveway, but one of our driveways tonight. It's Monday. Bulk isn't until Friday. If we go to once a month, bulk isn't until, say, July 31st. Those things are just sitting down there, and I can see that happening more and more and more and more of people putting down bulk items early in a month, waiting an entire month for it to be picked up. And the streets are going to look like garbage dumps, basically. I know some people put stuff down because they know people drive around, the scrappers will come around, they'll pick it up, and so and that might happen in some cases. But I also know that I see stuff just sort of sitting down there, pretty much all week long, every week, and once a month would just compound the issue. So at the very least, I personally would want to stick with bulk pickup once a week. I just wondered about the automated trucks. Again, I'm referring to the streets of Levittown. There's an awful lot of cars that park on the streets in our sections. And I'm wondering what capability these trucks have of reaching in front of or behind or in between cars to pick up cans. I wonder if that's an issue because I could see there being lots of different types of damage or scraping fenders and things like that. I don't know if they have the ability to be in the middle of a street and the arm reaches that far to pick up the receptacles. I think it's something to consider, perhaps. Otherwise, I can see people having cans all the way out into the middle of the street so that they avoid their cars. So that is something I hadn't thought of before, but I just wonder if that might be an issue. So I guess basically just the whole idea that, yeah, it's a stiff increase, but it is over a 10-year period, basically, that we're looking at, and we should expect these kinds of increases. It's not as bad as 75% when you look at it divided by 10. That's my opinion, at least. And I just want to close with a comment that I made once before at a meeting. I still believe, out of all the different taxes and whatnot that we all pay, I think this is one of the biggest bangs for the buck that we get. The amount of money that we pay for the kinds of stuff and the amount of stuff that gets picked up. As the gentleman before stated, he's put down all kinds of things. I've been in ours for 40 years, and I can't begin to tell you all the kind of stuff that we've put down, and it's always taken. And I'm not sure I could have put it all in a can. So I do think that it's money well spent. I urge you to lean towards the as-is, and I thank you for the time to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Post. Any other public comment? Yes, ma'am. Just please state your name and address.
Hi, I'm Danielle Skoll. I live at 250 Woodstream Court in Summit Trace. And I just wanted to say, if we have to pay individually for a bulk pickup item, it's like $15 or $30 a year more, depending on the options you're comparing, for the entire year. So if anybody has to pay to get a bulk item picked up once because they don't have the wherewithal to move it on the one day a month it's allowed, or it's something gross that can't sit for a month or it'll be like disgusting, you're gonna spend that $15 or $30, probably a lot more than that, for one bulk pickup. And the same thing, the difference between the once a week pickup and the twice a week pickup, I think was something like $180 a year. And like, people online are saying the places that have once a week pickup, they're having like rodent problems, they're having insect problems, you know, it's a hygiene issue. And then like handicapped people that can't carry large items, a lot of the ones in my neighborhood, it's got a lot of older residents, they're just putting their trash bag on the curb. They're not taking a 96-gallon 7-bag trash can up and down. And we have a lot of townhouses and twin houses where there's not really any good place to put those trash cans. And they could be blowing around the neighborhood. And we have parking on both sides of the street. There's not enough street parking as it is. So if one person gets a visitor, it's blocking your mailbox and your mail can't get delivered. So as the other gentleman was saying, I'm not sure how that's gonna work if you don't have a good place to put your trash can, or the street parking's not gonna block it, they're just gonna not pick up your trash. Or if it's a holiday or a snow day, is the trash gonna be waiting for 2 weeks now? Or if it snows twice, will it be 3 weeks? So I'm a big fan of the twice a week pickup and the manual pickup. And like, if you get any work done on your house or you clean out your garage, there's a lot of weird, heavy objects that you're not gonna be well able to put into a trash can. So I feel like if we're trying to save $30 or like $4 a week, we're gonna end up spending a lot more than that, or we're gonna have like gross situations with smells and insects and trash blowing around in the wind. But also, I was wondering if it's possible to consider Summit Trace for the manual pickup, because we have cars on both sides of the street. If anybody wants to pass coming in 2 directions, somebody has to park on the side because you can't pass each other. So and the houses are right on top of each other. I'm not really sure how bad the traffic is gonna be, or if you're gonna have more cars getting hit if there's like a clog because the trash truck is there, or there's trash cans in the street now that weren't there before. So that's my garage panic attack, you know, my trash can panic attack, thank you. And then if there are questions, is there any way to ask questions that get answered online, or you just wait for them?
The FAQ, it's trash FAQ, am I right? Trash FAQ at Middletown Bucks.
Okay, oh, is that live now?
It is.
Okay, because I know a lot of people were asking, do you only get 1 trash can, and if you have 2 trash cans, do you have to pay for that, or?
The way we have it structured right now is that you'll get 1. If you'd like to get a second one, I believe it's $12 a month that you can add the second one if you
Right.
want. And also for the, you know, folks who are concerned about being elderly, you can request in the first quarter a smaller container that is still an automated container. It's about 30 gallons. Yeah, 65 gallons.
Okay,
So
but
it's
then
much
if that,
smaller.
if you had to put out more trash one week and you had the 30-gallon,
If you had the 65 gallon, you're going to have a lot of options. For someone who, you know, my suggestion to anyone is, you know, first of all, if the board should go to automated, my suggestion is to live with it for a couple of months and see how it goes. I mean, you have a large family that might want to get a second container, they can. Someone who finds that it's much too big and they feel that it's too cumbersome, you can request the smaller one. Our neighboring town, Northampton Township, had this exact component built into their bid, and virtually no one asks for the smaller bin because people, although they think that they are cumbersome and difficult to maneuver, they really aren't. And I can only say that because I live in a community that I do it myself, and I have a family of 6 that the trash is stacked in there, and it's designed in such a way that it's not that hard to move. So lots of options, and we will take your Summit Trace question under advisement and go out there and drive it and take a look at it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, a lot of great feedback, comments, questions tonight. More things for us to go back and think about and look into. So I cannot stress enough how much we want people to keep doing this, keep providing feedback and interacting, because that's how, as Ms. Tealy-Cools mentioned, that's how some of these issues have come to our attention and have given us, the impetus to look into them. So thank you very much. Before we close this, any other questions, comments from anybody, the board, members of the public? Yeah, Mr. Valla.
We do have one virtual participant named Vince who has their hand raised. Vince, go ahead and try to state your name and address now.
Yes, Vince Aurelio, 45 Dawn Road. And just wanted to have a quick comment for all the reasons that have already been mentioned by the previous residents. I would support keeping our service as is. But I do have a question in regards to why a manual once a week option is not available. Or what was it available?
And actually, the other gentleman asked that as well.
There was not incorporated into the bid a once a week manual. That's not an option. There's twice a week automated. But there is not once a week manual, and
so that's not an option?
that was not an option in the bid, no.
Is that a waste management choice, or is that a township choice?
When we structured the bid, we didn't incorporate that as an option.
Okay, that's a shame, because I think that might have solved a lot of issues for many people. I also would add to the reasons that have already been given by other residents, that I know folks in other townships that do have automated systems, and the one major problem that I've seen is that when it's an automated system and anything falls out of the can and doesn't get into the truck, no one picks it up, and a lot of waste is left behind, unfortunately, because the driver is not going to get out and pick that up, and it's going to make our streets a lot more, unfortunately, a lot more trashy, if you don't, for lack of another term. But thank you for your time, and good evening.
Thank you very much. Yep, come on up.
Eric Bruno, 79 Sweetgum. Steph, thank you for addressing the labor issue. I know I gave you crap back in March, so I will just say that. Thank you. I do appreciate that. That's all.
Thank you very much. Other questions, comments? Going once, going twice? Yes, sir.
Just one more to follow up on the last. Would it all be feasible to ask Waste Management to come back and say, and bid on a once a week manual? Thanks.
I don't think legally we can
No, we're
do that
not
once it's
legally.
gone out for public bid. I think unfortunately that ship has sailed. No other questions, comments? Okay. Thank you, everybody, for your participation, and keep weighing in, keep asking questions, keep providing feedback. So that takes us into other business. I'll start with Mr. Kessler.
We just have some plans for signature tonight, but nothing further.
Thank you. Mr. Valla?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Griffin? Ms. Tealy-Cools?
Nothing, thank you.
Ms. Corporal?
Nothing, thank you.
Ms. Kane?
Nothing.
Ms. Hannah?
Nothing.
Ms. Payne?
Nothing, thank you.
And I have nothing further, so I will accept a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second? Second?
Second.
We're adjourned. Thank you. Have a great night.